Now we are back with the second news video of the day and the potential interesting news for NXT or an upcoming episode of NXT is current NXT North American champion has been doing current NXT North American champion Wes Lee has been doing weekly a weekly open challenge similar to what John Cena did as United States champion back a few years ago. And the fact of the matter is, he had Nathan Frazier accept the open challenge after, what was it, Vengeance Day, maybe? A few weeks ago, when he issued an open challenge to the entire roster, it was a returning Nathan Frazier who accepted the challenge, and they tore the house down. But this week, it is Axiom who will be accepting the challenge for a shot at the North American Championship. But now, former Raw Tag Team Champion and Cruiserweight Champion Cedric Alexander basically challenged Wes Lee via Twitter that if he's feeling froggy, Cedric Alexander's free on Tuesdays and could make the move down to NXT for a match for the North American Championship. And I, for one, will say if the match with Nathan Frazier is any indication, I would love to see Cedric Alexander make the move for a week down to NXT and challenge Wes Lee for the North American Championship. And, even if WWE wants to move Cedric down to NXT for a cup of coffee like they did with the New Day, and let Cedric win the North American Championship, because to my knowledge, Wes Lee needs a match. Wes Lee needs a match that stands and deliver. Wes Lee needs a match that stands and deliver. So, why not have Cedric Alexander go against Wes Lee at WrestleMania? WrestleMania weekend. Book it. Book it, you cowards. As I believe it would be Tom Campbell would say on Cultaholic. I think that would be an amazing match. Cedric Alexander versus Wes Lee. Perfect match for the North American Championship. Speaking of WrestleMania weekend, though, Sheamus promoting the match with Drew McIntyre on next week's episode of SmackDown, St. Paddy's Day, Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre next week. The winner will fight Gunther at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. It has been rumored since early February, as we talked about in a previous news video, that it will be a triple threat at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship, which means there will be some sort of a disputed finish next week on SmackDown with both Sheamus and Drew McIntyre getting the win, or the match ending in a way where Drew and Sheamus, either one of them, could be the one to fight Gunther at WrestleMania. I think a triple threat match would suffice and actually be a good way to do it. Or a good idea, I should say. I think it would be a good idea at WrestleMania because it would get both Sheamus and Drew on the card, and as both men deserve the opportunity to be featured on WrestleMania. Both men, in my opinion, deserve the opportunity to be featured at WrestleMania, and if that is the best way for them to be featured at WrestleMania, then let it happen. The one thing that was also mentioned is Sheamus insinuated that his match at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship would be the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. Because, realistically, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes is likely the main event of WrestleMania Night 2. But, in my opinion, it is more likely that whatever happens with the Usos and Sami Zayn, or Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte, will be the main event of WrestleMania Night 1, and not the Intercontinental title match. It is not to say that the Intercontinental title does not deserve to be in the main event, but in my opinion, if the tag team title match was not as heavily promoted as it was, and in the position that they're in, as far as the Usos with their title reign and Sami Zayn with his momentum, if that wasn't the case, then I would say, yes, I completely agree. Gunther deserves the main event of WrestleMania. But also at this point, to say Gunther would not be in the position at some point in the not too distant future to be the main event of WrestleMania outside of being the number one, outside of being the Intercontinental Champion, and that the match would have to take place this year, I highly doubt that that's the case. I disagree that that's the case or a necessity. And the fact of the matter is, that could happen next year, that could happen in 2 years, that could happen in 3 years. That could happen, that could happen in the future, but the fact of the matter is, the one thing that needs to be that can't be understated is that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos deserve to be the main event of WrestleMania. Simple as that. There's no other match that deserves to be the main event of WrestleMania outside of that. If that match wasn't there, then I would say I agree with the idea of the Intercontinental title match as that, or Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte is a close second. Now, Angelo Dawkins recently said in a podcast interview, when he was asked if the Street Profits would ever break up, Angelo said no, that they will always have each other's backs, they will always be partners, they will always be friends. And I do completely agree with that. I think that is the best way to go about it, that if anything, the best way to split up the Street Profits is in the draft. Let them split up in the draft where they can't feud with each other, but that would allow then Montez and Angelo to be single superstars. Or you do the New Day route, or you go the New Day route and have them be singles wrestlers on the same brand, but never feud. Because every team that breaks up does not need to feud. And I think that the Street Profits are one of those teams that if they broke up, they would not need to feud, or pretty much people would shit on it and not want to see the feud. Simple as that. And I completely agree with Angelo that that should be the case, that they should never break up. But I'm not saying that because I don't want to see Montez as a singles wrestler or Angelo as a singles wrestler for that matter either. It's the fact that I think that you have the draft and you have the brand split, and you could split them up through the brand split, which would allow them both to be singles wrestlers then and not have to worry about having them feud. Now on to something that may cause a little bit of concern, but also open up the question of what the hell's going on as Bray Wyatt missed the last night's live event at Madison Square Garden and he was advertised but did not end up appearing. And Braun Strowman ended up taking Bray's spot against LA Knight, which also prompted the question after the fact as LA Knight took to Twitter and posted a WrestleMania logo with LA Knight, or with LA spray painted above the WrestleMania portion of it, because as he said on Twitter, you can't have a LA WrestleMania without LA Knight. Yeah. And now it's a possibility that maybe LA Knight appeals to The Miz about sharing hosting duties, or maybe he interrupts The Miz during WrestleMania, and we have a face-off between two of the best mouthpieces in WWE, The Miz and LA Knight. Now, the reason why I just glossed over the Bray Wyatt missing at the Madison Square Garden live event is because not much is known as why. All we know is he wasn't there. That's it. All we know is he wasn't there. But we end on the interesting news I mentioned earlier, and that is that Scott D'Amore was promoted. Scott D'Amore has been promoted to the president of Impact Wrestling. Scott D'Amore and Don Callis took over the head duties after Anthem Sports took over Impact Wrestling. It was Scott D'Amore and Don Callis that took over and righted the ship, or stabilized the ship for Impact Wrestling. And they've really done a wonderful job as the leaders of Impact Wrestling, to be honest with you. And the fact of the matter is, I could not be happier for Scott D'Amore. And it's very much deserved. It is very much deserved. And Louis D'Angeli, the former, I believe this is the guy that was once Louis Dangerously in was this not the guy that was Louis D'Angeli? Did he not work for ECW? This is the guy that worked for ECW. He was, a former manager. He was a part of the Dudley Boys, and also the director of marketing for WWE for 4 years. So he has the experience. He's been working for. He was previously the vice president of marketing for Anthem Sports, and now he is the president. Well, actually, his Louis D'Angeli's, or maybe he has a different role now. But he was brought on last year as the vice president of marketing for Anthem Sports, according to his LinkedIn. But this is the guy that used to be Louis Dangerously in ECW, as he worked for ECW from 1995 to 2001. I don't remember which Dudley boy he played, or which member of the Dudley family he played, but props to both Louis D'Angeli and Scott D'Amore on their promotions, as I don't think there is anybody better to be the president of Impact Wrestling than Scott D'Amore, as also Richard Schaefer was named the president of Anthem Sports Group, which I believe is the under. Schaefer said, "I'm beyond thrilled to be joining the Anthem team and ASG. Len Asper, Ed Nordholm, Scott D'Amore, and Shannon Knapp have built a fantastic business. I am honored to be working with them. Together, we will create a global destination which attracts the best talent and delivers more exciting content across all aspects of combat sports. And all of our assets under the ASG umbrella will create new and innovative synergies when dealing with distribution platforms, sponsors, venues, and fan interaction. As ASG is likely the part of Anthem Sports, or Anthem, where Impact Wrestling is under. But props to those who have, gotten promoted. But that is the end of today's news videos, and I appreciate all the support, and I hope you enjoyed. Till next time, I will see you in the next video.